Let's get into it. Coach Colin here. What's going on, guys? In this episode, we are going to get into a man who very intelligently flew a little too close to the sun. Charlie Kirk, the maestro. Now, this is not something that I knew. We all knew Charlie passed away, a very powerful man, very powerful, a president maker, had the ear of the president. When it came time for someone to go to Greenland and talk things out and potentially acquire Greenland, Don Jr. went with Charlie Kirk. And in reality, when you really look at who Charlie Kirk was, Don Jr. went with Charlie. It wasn't Charlie went with Don Jr. I mean, let's just be real here. So he was very, very powerful, very, very intelligent. Everybody knew that. But what was he doing behind the scenes? Now, what I'm going to be talking about is going to give a different element into what could have happened to Charlie, right? We knew that there was alphabet community that didn't like him. We knew that his opinion was evolving on a certain place in the Middle East. I think it's called Philadelphia. We knew all that. But when you hear what he was doing behind the scenes, changes things a little bit. Now, I already heard this from Candace, and I went, maybe there's something there. I just kind of jotted it down as a little note. That's what I do when I listen to podcasts. But then I heard a couple other things, and I actually messaged I didn't message Officer Tatum. I commented on something he said. And I'm going to show you what he said. But what I said to him was, this reveals so much more than you realize. Wow. I'm going to show you what he said, but first we're going to go through Candace and Dave Smith and show you what Candace said. Then I'm going to show you what Megyn Kelly actually brought just a few hours ago. She brought to the forefront. She is showing people exactly what Charlie was about behind the scenes, how he was kind of orchestrating things, and in what way. And then we'll move on to what Officer Tatum had to say as well. Again, all very revealing stuff. Let's start with Candace first, and then we'll move on.
Right. And people we're just so tired of being sold slop. Another thing that struck me as very odd was they were pushing this kid, Breland Holland. You may have seen this, like a nice kid. He's like young and
yeah. But it looks like he was made in an AI lab or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like just nice kid. Trump mentions this kid in his speech at the memorial. Okay. Donald Trump mentions this kid who he doesn't know. And he's like, Charlie interviewed this kid who was only in fourth grade, blah, blah, blah. Hi, I was there for the interview. Trump wasn't. Why is Trump mentioning this? It was a random side podcast that we did when we did an event down in Alabama. Who put this in your speech? Okay. This had nothing to do with you, Trump. You didn't even know that I was there, right? Because somebody put this in your speech. That seems to me like you're just kind of trying to set the stage for this kid who's controlled by
Philadelphia
narratives to become the new Charlie Kirk. So it just smells, and I'm covering it meticulously. And there obviously is an emotional investment here. Charlie was an amazing person. You know, he really was. He held the line. And when he gave an inch, like, okay, I won't have Candace, there's a reason he then said, and now you get Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, and everybody else who's
Philadelphia.
Israel. That's how he was. He was very strategic. And I know he pissed off Bibi Netanyahu and his boys because he is the single reason, okay, that we did not go to war with Iran. You guys may think that's crazy. It's a fact.
No, it was a big, that was a big deal. And look, I remember it. I remember texting him and giving him a lot of credit for it at the time, because it was like what happened was, as Trump is flirting with what it turned into the 12-day war, or around the time when Israel starts first bombing, and it wasn't clear whether or not we were going to get in on it. It was like, again, like it was you, Tucker, like all these people, Steve Bannon, there were all these people who, I mean, like really, really influential, like high level. I remember talking about it at the time and being like, I've just never seen anything like this before. Like this would be like in 2004, like Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh all turning against George W. Bush's policy in the war. Like, what would that look like? You can't even like imagine it. Or Rachel Maddow and all of them turning against Obama or something. You never saw. But here you have this, and then Charlie, who was more. Look, obviously he was more. He was in a slightly different game than the rest of us are in. Like, he wasn't just doing a show. He was doing a get out the vote youth organizational big tent Republican thing. So he was always the most just pro.
I know, way too close to the camera, but you have to understand, I have a Patreon now, so consider subscribing to the Patreon. As you know, sometimes we get attacked by bigger accounts and it puts this channel in jeopardy. On Patreon, I'll be able to talk about things that I can't talk about here, and you'll have more of a link to me just in case, because like I said, they're going to figure out this whole Philadelphia thing that I've been rolling with the past few weeks. And if they do, you'll find me over there. Link in the description.
Trump of the group. Like, not that all of you guys might have supported Trump, but that was Charlie's identity. And then when even he came out and was just like, no, dude, like, we are not, this is not what the Trump base wants. Like, this is not, that is a huge, look, again, to some degree, it's hard to prove the counterfactual or what influence everything had, but that made it that there was such a political price for Donald Trump to have escalated the thing. Like,
and he was saying this to his face at the White House. And Charlie was, someone said to me, and this is a perfect way to put it, Charlie was a maestro, right? So he would play like, hey, you know, Mr. President, here's why, and here's whatever. And then he'd go and he'd call me, and he'd call like Matt Gaetz and Tucker. He'd be like, hammer him, showing you, like, you know, the market, they don't like this, whatever. And he won, like, in a room full of people who wanted him to go to war with Iran. Charlie Kirk made the difference. And I don't take Bibi Netanyahu as someone who would take that lightly, right? And everything he has done since Charlie has passed, trying to assert his legacy as he never blinked on
Philadelphia.
It makes me uncomfortable. Okay. Now that's a feeling, and I've expressed that feeling, but I've also been meticulous about delivering a timeline of the facts. And it is very clear that some funny business started happening after the notorious event where you and Tucker spoke at, and they were enraged, and the donors were enraged. They took millions of dollars. And he said after that, he said no to Bibi Netanyahu. He said, no, I don't want your money. I don't want to take Turning Point to the next level. I've now recently, which I haven't presented yet, am learning how much money each person at Turning Point lost when Charlie said no to Bibi Netanyahu, because they were going to get a percentage of that. And that's interesting. Anybody investigating a crime knows, look at financial motives, right? Common sense, look at financial motives. And they're emotionally manipulating us like, it's disrespectful to his legacy to pursue truth. I knew Charlie. I'm not listening to them. You do one of two things when you go through something like that. I suffered a real trauma. I had to take 2 weeks off because I couldn't even process what was happening. And the way they were trying to get us to just forget about it. Dave, just move on. His legacy is he loves Israel. It's over. And here's what you can do if you love Charlie, donate. Okay. No. I was behind Turning Point because Charlie was there. He's not there. I need to know what and who is running this organization now behind the scenes. And I'm not going to accept that, okay, well, Erica Kirk, on paper, she's a chairman and she's a CEO, but you don't learn how to be a chairman and a CEO overnight because your husband died, right? That's just a fact. I couldn't be a chairman and a CEO. And I've been in business. My husband does all of that because it's not my natural interest. You have to actually like the mundane. You got to read the contracts and you got to understand the LLC structures, the contractors that you're bringing in for a company that's worth $100 million, Dave. Okay, there's some snakes in the garden, and I'm here to cut the grass and figure out where they are.
Man, Candace. Now, if you caught it, how she said he's a maestro, and that he would say to the president, he would say certain things. Oh, he'd be very understanding, almost like good cop, bad cop, and he was like both. So he would say, Mr. And then he would actually tell people to hammer him. Now, I'm not saying anything about the president, but it just shows that this was something that he would do. And you're going to understand what I mean by this as we go through the episode, because it gets a little intense, especially with the clip that Megyn Kelly actually shares. And she supports what she's showing in her clip along with what Tucker says. So you're going to see that in a second too. But let's keep moving. So Candace says, wow, Megyn Kelly just happened to capture Charlie backstage telling Tucker Carlson to go max. Now, when this happened, this was exactly what Candace was talking about, where the timeline begins that we've been through so many times. I've done multiple episodes on the timeline and how suspicious it all seems. It already seems suspicious. Then Baron Coleman actually provides the fact that Google searches were being done right after this whole thing. She even says it right here. Before you hit the stage for Turning Point Summit in July. So it was that exact moment from pretty much the 11th to the 14th where Tucker goes on stage, says a bunch of stuff. Dave Smith and Josh Hammer. Josh Hammer loses the debate, and then instantly everything circulating the Charlie Kirk case gets searched on Google over and over and over again. Some in Washington, D.C., and some out in the Middle East. In a small place, it is called Philadelphia. For those of you that haven't caught on yet, it's okay. It's all right. We're just trying to survive out here. But that's where the searches were coming from, right? Very interesting stuff. So Candace Owens actually shared that, and that's where I found this clip. Now, I just want to say again, before I play this clip, the fact that he was being this maestro behind the scenes, even when it came to the president, he would say things to the president and then be like, hammer him. So that means he was calling forth people who were his allies and saying, I need you to make this post. I need, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. I'm not saying that's what he did, but when you say hammer him to Candace Owens, what does that mean? That means she's going to go on her show and say some stuff. That means she's going to go on social media and say some stuff. If you say that to Matt Gaetz, what's he doing? He has a show like Candace does on OAN. He's going to say some stuff. He's going to post some stuff. So you're calling these people who are your allies, and you're getting them to say the things that you can't be seen saying in public. But what you're doing is using them to send a message to the administration and also to other people, as you'll see here. Let's jump into this. This is Tucker Carlson talking about his experience, and then Megyn Kelly showing the clip that she found.
The effort by the neocons in the United States to draw us in to another forever war with Iran. It's not a defense of Iran, of course. It's merely an acknowledgement that we've done this before. This happened in Iraq, which we entered into at the behest of those same foreign policy strategists, and it didn't work. And so I was going on at some length backstage with Charlie, and I said, probably not going to talk about that. I'm not going to torture you. I know your donors hate this when I say that. And also Epstein was in the news, and it was clear to me that, Epstein's probably not like a bot agent or something, but Epstein clearly had contact with
Philadelphia
intelligence and American intelligence and French intelligence, but the only one you're not allowed to talk about is
Philadelphia
intelligence. But it seemed true to me, and I had done some work on that. I knew a bunch of people pretty close to that story, so I thought that. And I said that to Charlie, and I said, but I'm not going to say that because I don't want to make your donors mad. I know it's just going to be like an endless flurry of text telling you to stop or you're going to lose a bunch of funding. And he looked at me, I'll never forget it, and said, go all the way. Do it. Go all the way. I said, man, a lot of things I can talk about. I don't need to talk about that. And he said, do it. So I did it.
And here's the thing, Stu. I was recently going through some old pictures to find one of me and Charlie that I knew we took at that event. And not only did I find pictures of me and Charlie, but I found a video of me, Tucker, and Charlie.
Now, I know I'm interrupting. I know, but I just have to make sure that you remember what Tucker is saying there. Tucker is saying that he has all these things that he can talk about. And I don't want to inflict anything bad on you. I know you're already taking some heat for me being here. I'll talk about other stuff. No problem. And Charlie says, no, do it. Why? Because the things that the things that Tucker said when he was on that stage, the things that Dave Smith brought up arguments about versus Josh Hammer, those were things that I'm not saying Charlie wanted to say, but there are things that he couldn't even be allowed to question, that Tucker is allowed to because he doesn't care. Dave Smith is allowed to because that's literally what I've never even seen Dave Smith's comedy special. I know they exist, but I've heard him talk about this subject more than anything. I mean, you know what I mean? So he brings those two guys on because he wants what they have to say, what they think towards Philadelphia. He wants that to be the thing that they say. He wants them to actually bring those conversations up. He wants that in the air at Turning Point. That says a lot. Now let's go back to that clip.
Speaking backstage right before Tucker went out. Tucker and I were talking. Charlie came over and interrupted for just a second. And you can hear him on this tape, which I've listened to many times. It's very clear on my phone, less clear here probably as we play it. But he says to Tucker, go Max. He interrupts the conversation because he has to say to Tucker something. And what was so important to him to tell Tucker was, go Max. Here it is.
Go Max.
It's quick. It's just.
Even the way, I'm sorry, like I know some people be like, oh, that was nothing. Again, I've brought this up before, how these guys in politics work. Everything is very subtle. And even the way that Charlie looks at Tucker and kind of backs away, and it's like this silent thing. It's not even like he's like, haha, just go and do it, bro. I don't even care. I don't even care. He's saying it like it's like, this is very serious. I really need you to do this. Even the way he just backs away from him. Look at it again.
It is.
Go Max.
Like he backs away like this is very serious. So when Candace says that she knows of 3 people who say 3 people and 2 that have actual written confirmation that Charlie said he was afraid that Philadelphia was going to come and actually do away with him. It makes it way more believable now. I'm just saying. It makes it more believable. There's so many other roads of thought you could go down when it comes to, and you could go with the official narrative as well. That's there. It doesn't make much sense, but it's there. And you can go with that as well. It just, I didn't know that he was behind the scenes doing this. I just thought he was like, I'm very close to Tucker. Of course I'm going to have Tucker. I'm very close to Candace. Of course I'm thinking about having Candace. In those text messages that I just figured, he's like, why not? They're my friends and I'm losing donors anyway. Who cares? Let's do it. But in reality, he was actually trying to get a certain message across to his audience, his massive Turning Point audience. But he was trying to do it through other people. So, I'll let this play. Let me grab this. I'm going to try and find that town hall that he had. I'm going to try and find that really quick, but I'll let the rest of this clip play with Megan.
It's quick. It just happens to be on tape, and it backs up what Tucker said. And so I just think we need to be realistic. Charlie understood what was happening to the conservative movement over
Philadelphia.
Israel. He probably understood it better than any of us because he absolutely loved
Philadelphia.
Israel. And yet he represented and was of young people. He was young. That was his constituency. That's where he spent all of his time. And he knew that even on the right side of the aisle, they had turned and were turning on
Philadelphia.
Israel. And knowing all of that, he told Tucker to go out there and do all the things Tucker did. Go Max, he said. Now, why did he do that? Because he knew there was a faction within the conservative movement that needed a voice. They needed somebody to put their thoughts and their complaints and their objections into words in a public setting and not just cede the whole argument to the other side, which has been dominating conservative thought and media forever. The Mark Levins of the world. And so it's one of the many reasons why I really object to this attempt to otherize, snuff out the voice of Tucker Carlson. Charlie knew exactly where Tucker stood on these issues and wanted him, and I quote, to go Max. The answer to what is happening right now on the conservative half of the aisle is not to silence Tucker, to diminish him to the point where he doesn't have followers. Not that that's possible, you lunatics. Or to try to delegitimize Tucker. If anything, Tucker is a remaining voice for Charlie, whose views were changing himself. So I have nothing against Ben saying all the things he feels, or more neo-Connie people feeling that, or pro-Israel
Pro-Philadelphia
people saying all. I think they should say that, and I understand perfectly where they're coming from. But there is another reasoned, passionate point of view, and Tucker represents that. And that's...
Oh, well, she's getting canceled. I mean, I'm not a psychic or anything. You know what I mean? I talk to Christ every day. He's my guy. But you don't have to You don't have to be spiritually inclined to be able to see that Megan's getting canceled. Okay? She didn't say Philadelphia once. You're playing with fire, lady. Huh? You know what I mean? You guys know what I mean. Because they're gonna I'm just saying. Like, they're coming. I mean, check X. See if I'm lying. Put in Megyn Kelly into X right now. Search it. You tell me what's popping up after she just said that. She said that, what, 6 hours ago? Go ahead, search X. Check it out, what they're saying. I'm sure you're going to see some posts that are just like, I like Megyn Kelly's clear thinking and rational tone on this subject. That's what you're going to see. I think what Megyn Kelly is doing is very, very thoughtful for her to have me on stage and allow me to speak, and then also speak her mind about Charlie's evolving opinions. I think it was a brilliant thing to do. That's what you're going to hear. That was my Ben Shapiro, by the way. I think it's pretty good. Anyway, let's keep going. So now, Megan's 100% right. I love what she had to say there. You know, nothing's going to happen to Tucker. Tucker might run for president. Like, nothing's happening to Tucker. I would have said that about Charlie 3 months ago, quite honestly. 4 months ago, I would have said that about Charlie too. You know, what can happen? Yeah, everybody has to stay safe. All those guys that have Candace, Tucker, even Ian has to stay safe, honestly. Valhalla VFT, I mean, he has a background. You break into his house, you are now not safe. If any, I'm just saying, you try and do anything to that guy, you are the one that is no longer safe. It's going to be a problem. I would imagine. I'm just saying. But let's jump into Officer Tatum. Officer Tatum had some stuff to say here. I found it very interesting because he admitted something. And this is why I said this. This reveals so much more than you know. He didn't even realize what he was saying, what he was admitting. He watched the same clip that you just watched, and he said this. So Charlie told me something similar at the same event before I went on the stage. He told me to go all in on Jeff. He said nothing about Philadelphia. He said to me, "Are you going to talk about Jeff?" Jeff? I said, "Of course I am." He said, "Go in." Because I cannot. Mikey McCoy was standing right next to him. He said nothing about Philadelphia. He never expressed to me or publicly that he believed Philadelphia was the focal point of the Jeff issue. He said, like everyone in the world, he wanted to blast the admin and others for not releasing the files, to insinuate anything. He was telling Tucker to go in on Philadelphia. It's really hard as I'm reading the word to say a different word. Is insane. So he doesn't realize he's actually, and of course, you know, he's not watching all the same stuff I am. I'm like that guy in the meme connecting all the red pieces of string. But Candace says he's a maestro, that he's doing this behind the scenes. And if people hear that about when Candace says that, for sure, there's hundreds, thousands of people who are just like, Candace is crazy, blah, blah, blah. But now all of a sudden we see that Tucker was told something like that. Megyn Kelly confirms it. She has a clip of it. Tucker is very open about it. And even Officer Tatum is like, he told me the same thing. And he said, Officer Tatum actually says, and I quote, because Charlie said, "Go in, because I cannot." The only thing is that this, I want to be nice. You know? I don't want to call him a clown, but he's been clownish recently. He just doesn't realize that the reason Charlie wanted him to go all in on Jeff was because of the connection to Philadelphia. It wasn't the sole thing. It was obviously the whole thing is just wild. The fact that the files didn't get released properly, and then what they ended up saying, it was all nuts. It was nutty, right? But he doesn't even realize what he just let out there. So Tucker wanted people to go all in because he couldn't. He's verifying that I need to talk about these things, and these things need to be put on Front Street, but I can't be the one to do it. So I'm going to have Tucker do it. Brandon, if he's willing to do some stuff, I'm going to have Brandon do it. That's Officer Tatum, if you didn't know. I'm going to have him do it. I'm going to have Dave Smith do it. And even when he was catching backlash, he said, I'm thinking about having Candace back, because that would have been his moment of just crescendo. Because if he's saying to Tucker, go all in, he's saying to Tatum, I mean, what Tatum doesn't even have a go all in button. He doesn't even have that gear. You know what I mean? Everything is just like, I think this is ridiculous. I think this is ridiculous, and I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that this is happening at this point in time. This is wild. So he doesn't talk like that. He doesn't talk like that. I know he doesn't. But if he's saying that to them, imagine he leans into Candace and says, hey, Candace, would you mind going all in? He would say it to her, and she would just become a puff of smoke like the cartoons. And he'd be like, oh, and she'd be on stage already. She'd be on stage with the microphone, just going all in. And let me tell you about BB. She would go. Imagine that's what was gonna happen come Amfest, because that when he says that in those text messages, he's talking about Amfest, which is happening in, I believe, December, I think 13th to 17th or something like that. So that's the event he was thinking about putting her onto. How crazy would that have been? If he was still alive, there'd be so many different things happening right now. So many different things. I think this dude right here, I think Tatum, he'd be walking a whole different drum beat. Charlie would be like, do you still want to do the change my mind thing, the prove me wrong thing? You still want to roll a turning point, right? Okay, well, we're doing something different. I want you to sit down with Candace. I want Officer Tatum and Candace to have a debate. At 6:00, Candace Owens slaughtered someone named Officer Brandon Tatum on stage at a Turning Point event. It was quite gruesome. The debate was about Philadelphia. Candace put so many facts in between Officer Tatum's between his ears that his brain swelled and exploded on stage. It was quite the feat. We've never seen anything like this before. Candace ended the debate by saying, "We don't know, but we know. Back to you, John." Oh yeah, it would be bad. It'd be bad. But again, back to like what I'm talking about. It's just Charlie was orchestrating these things. Now, you want to go down the real tinfoil road. What are we, 27 minutes? I'll go a little longer. Hold on. You want to go down the real. You want to put on your Speedo. Think about this. He's saying this to these people in person, okay? He's calling people like Candace said. You think his phone's not tapped? You think they're not listening to everything he had to say? You think they're still not doing that to Turning Point people? Like, everyone thinks like they're in on it to the extent that they're like deep state. They're not deep state. You think they're not being listened to? You think everything they say is not being listened to by somebody, recorded? Anytime any of them are on their phones? So you have to also picture this. Again, not talking about the president. This is Intel. So now, who does Intel work for? Who does America Intel work with? Not work for, sorry. Who does American Intel work with? I'm just saying. Very easy to hear him talking about some stuff. You know, they didn't have to wait for the Megyn Kelly. They didn't have to wait for the Tucker event. They didn't have to wait for all that. The donors did, for them to get mad. But anybody deeper than that, they were probably hearing his opinion evolve while he was on his phone, while he was sending those messages. You think those private group, you think Andrew actually had to screenshot those group chats and send them to the authorities? You think he really had to do that? I'm just saying. If they were building files on George Carlin, they probably built one on Charlie. I'm gonna take a long guess here. You know, it's wild. And I'll end it off with this. It's the last thing that Candace had to say in this interview. I think it was the most impactful. Go ahead, Candace. Dave, take a seat for a second. We just wanna talk to Candace for a minute. Go ahead, Candace.
Because he actually believed it at that time. He was an authentic human being. It was not this like hardcore political, he wasn't in a cult, and he was transformative. If he thought something and he was wrong, he would change his mind and he would tell you how he got there. And they knew that about him. They knew that he was not a cult member and that money was not going to be something that was going to make him go, okay, well, I'm just going to say the thing and look like a fool. What Charlie wanted more than anything else was to win. Okay. In order to win, you have to be right. In order to win, you have to be right long term. And so Charlie would do the due diligence. He would study things. He would have the conversations, and he was landing up. He was just winding up on the other side of this thing, like I did, where it's like, hey, and that's what I said to him. I was like, when you start looking into this, you're feeling the pressure. You're going to see something's very wrong. Like, we did not have this right, Charlie. We did not have this right. And because he had that humility to admit that he was wrong, he no longer served their purpose. Right? That's what I realized. They will throw you out and coordinate behind the scenes, have all their sicko fans go after you, take quotes out of context, start with the articles. He's flirting with anti-Semitism. He put on a hot dress and he saw anti-Semitism, whatever. It's like that's kind of where they start, and it's like that's like the threat of the articles that are about to drop. And Charlie said no, and so that is one of the things that makes me just so happy. And when I just pray. I just want him to know, like, you died with your soul intact. And something that brought me such peace was a donor at Turning Point USA, who was very close with Charlie, said to me in the immediate aftermath, a soul that is in struggle will free itself, right? One way or the other, it will free itself. And I think for Charlie, his soul was starting to struggle. And to know that his last things that he said to them was like, no, F you, keep your money. Like, he died a free man. And I think that's really important for people to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that is solid. That is solid. The thought of that. Passed away a free man because he didn't let his soul be taken by that type of thing. That's hard to do, man. That's really hard to do. I'm not saying that Tatum took any money at all, but if he did, couldn't blame him. If he's in those circles and they're approaching him, and even if they're not offering money, they're just like, you're going to help us, right? You're a friend. And he's seeing what's happening to all their other friends that decided not to do whatever. You gotta, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. I don't know what his situation is. I can't, I'll clown on him, I'll make fun and everything, but I don't know what's going on. Like, imagine we're all talking smack about Tatum, and we don't know that as those Google searches were happening, he got a call. He was just out somewhere and someone just rolled up on him, wife and kids, They were like, hello, how are you? Yalla, Brandon, how are you? How are you? Come, sit down. Had a talk with him. You never know. And we're all like, oh, look at this guy. Why has he changed so much? It's like, hey, when you get deep into that whole game like he is, he's deep. He's deep. Like, Charlie was deep, very deep. I don't know. You kind of have to do what Candace has done to break free. That's kind of what you have to do. You have to make yourself like no people want to work with you. No parties want to work with you. Everything wants to distance itself from you till you're pretty much radioactive, and then you kind of just build back on your own. That's kind of the only way to get free. So, again, I don't know what's happening with him. I'm wearing a tinfoil Speedo right now, okay? Sometimes the tinfoil Speedo brings about sympathy. It's not just all about going off the deep end. Because I love a good dip into the deep end. But sometimes you get some sympathy there as well. But yeah, the whole thing of him being a maestro, the whole thing of him really figuring out that he can't say certain things, so he's going to have other people say these things. And he's going to make sure that these thought processes get pushed into spaces where he can't push them. I don't know, man. That makes a lot of sense. I can't find the town hall, but I remember he even did a town hall with a bunch of young people. There's a bunch of young people where he did a town hall where he was just sitting with them. It was him and Andrew, and they were all airing out their grievances, saying what they thought about certain topics. And I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, why is he doing this? Like, they're saying things that are completely opposite of what he believes in. He did that whole Jubilee thing where he sits down with 20 people and he debates them all or whatever. It was because he was doing that because he wanted the people who really rode with him and really appreciated him and really watched him and followed him. He wanted them to start hearing a different thought process. You know, that's what people do. If somebody's out there that's been with me through 800 subscribers until now, you've heard me go on about the World Economic Forum. You've heard me cover all sorts of different things. You see me do this whole stint of Joe Rogan stuff where I'm kind of parsing out all these different ideas. You've seen me go through this whole investigation thing. Like, sometimes the things that you make as a content creator, they're for views. There's clicks involved, there's views involved because it is a business, but it's also because you want people to start hearing certain things and you want to be a part of that conversation that pushes those things forward towards all you know? Man, he flew too close to the sun. He was doing it in a very smart way, but they caught on. They? Who's they? I don't know. Anyways, guys, I'm out of here.